Welcome to Andalusia. It's a glorious day again. Some high cloud making it a sort of a soft start, you might think, but the blanket held the heat in of the day yesterday. We sort of nudged 20, 23 Celsius. Still reasonably warm, but the locals, as you can see, are sort of wearing Arctic coats for the sign-on today. And sign-on for glory, potentially. 10 down, who held the Strava record on yesterday's final climb, or yesterday's major climb until, of course, yesterday, when Contador and Valverde started to duke it out. Valverde is our leader. He wears the glorious red jersey. Not quite sure what it represents, but certainly the lead of this competition. Valverde will be allowing Poles to wear the orange jersey for the intermediate sprints. Valverde leads that competition. Your Pridi, you just saw a moment ago, leads the mountains competition. And we'll see how they go today. Expecting another, well, skirmish to say the very least. A lot of riders have come out of the winter break very, very good form. And indeed, Valverde himself, always up for a battle. Seems that he never rests. He just races in the Southern Hemisphere and then brings his race form to him at the top of the season. So he'd rather race than do anything else, as in train, or indeed rest. No rest for the wicked, and there must be some bad boys out there, and well, the best of them, to use the kids speak. Tim Wellens has managed to get himself into the breakaway. The 25-year-old is on mega form at the moment. We'll talk about that in a moment. Has been joined by Jörg Priedler, who wears the King of the Mountains jersey, to take on what is the Queen stage of the day. I'm hoping we're going to have a map for you in a few moments' time. Sandro Maurice has joined them from Wanty Group Gobert. Antonio Nibali, who is the younger brother of Vincenzo for Bahrain Merida, is also there, and worryingly for Tim Wellens and Jörg Priedler perhaps, Felix Grosshartner of CCC Sprandi Polkovici, who wears the bright orange. I think you saw him just a few moments ago. Well, some are suffering out there. Nothing too bad, but we've lost two riders, Jurado from Burgos and indeed Erzbruck from Cannondale. This is your profile. They took the breakaway, that is, the first peak, and indeed rode that flat earth section. They're heading for the Category 2 climb, which is the third of 4 categorized climbs today. And it's thinned down big time, and guess what? Wellens and Grosshartner, the two likely lads of the breakaway, are the survivors. Jörg Priedler got the mountains points he wanted over the first categorized climb of the day. Sandro Maurice and Antonio Nibali outclassed, and were always going to be so in this kind of terrain. The question remains, though, having had a lead of about 8 minutes, it's trimmed down now to just shy of 6, as you can see. Grosshartner, he's 12 minutes and 24 down. Tim Wellens, 7 minutes and 18 down, and the gap, as you can see, is, well, now 5 minutes and 43. The chase is being led for the time being by Lotto, not Lotto, I beg your pardon, by Trek Zagafredo on behalf of Alberto Contador, who looked so up for a battle yesterday. Valverde likewise. They want to keep tabs on Tim Wellens. He's 7 minutes and 18 down. It may be that they allow him, or he has the chance of rolling off the front to take the day's stage, but he's got to shell Grosshartner when he possibly can. And he's a pretty handy youngster, the 23-year-old Pole, in the orange here, as you join us live now, live pictures. He was fourth on the Tour of Croatia last year, which had a very good field. It celebrated the 25th anniversary of that nation. And he was good in Murcia as well. Tim Wellens himself has won a couple of trofeos locally. Pretty handy one, the Trumontana, the Trofeo Serra Trumontana, that was just a couple of weeks ago, and the Andrex Mirador, which sounds like a description of my bathroom, but in fact it is a trophy, and he did a fantastic job of taking that. So he's on stellar form. He has won a stage on the Giro as well. In fact, we look back, and it was the to Ricarasco, the Giro stage 6 last year, and it almost mirrored today. So let's hold a mirror up to Matt Stevens and ask him what he's got. We know it's a lot. What about these guys who are in the break? There's only 2 of them now with just under 50 to go. It looks like a motivated chase. Can they make it?
Yeah, interestingly, we've got Team Sky swapping turns on the front with the Trek Segafredo squad of Alberto Contador, who really lit things up yesterday on this on the final climb of the day. Alejandro Valverde was the strongest on the day. I mean, he's had an amazing start to the season, really showing his form. But as we see these two riders with a pretty healthy lead. It's worth mentioning, I think, Carlton, the lead went up to as much as 8 minutes at one point, but over the last 15 to 20 kilometres it really has started to tumble. But clearly two very strong riders out in front. Tim Wellens, as you said, he's already got 2 wins under his belt this year. They were back-to-back wins in Mallorca, both solo. He's in fine form. Didn't sprint for the King of the Mountains points earlier on, clearly conserving his energy, but really going for the win. But of course, what's important is that the two riders out in front, and here they are again. Tim Wellens in that familiar aerodynamic tuck that he adopts when he's riding solo or in a breakaway, trying to be as efficient as he can. Both of these riders no threat on the general classification at all. So in essence, we have two battles. We have a battle for the stage win, and that's hanging in the balance with just under 50 k's to go. And of course, we have the battle for the general classification.
Still not sure if they've got enough time in the bank, especially as we've got some highly motivated climbers, and in fact riders just testing themselves in events such as this, but they want bragging rights as well. And yesterday Alejandro Valverde, who always looks like a baddie, draw your own conclusions. We like him, but we know he's got a dark past. If he was in a cowboy shootout, he'd be the one with the dark hat on. Contador, possibly a slightly paler Stetson. Don't know where I'm going with this, but I know where Wellens is going, and that is off alone. He's decided that Grosshartner is not the man to share duties with. I suspect he thinks he's a danger, and he probably is, because he's a young Austrian, rides for the Polish team, 23 years of age. Tim Wellens himself is no veteran for the time being. He's approaching the best form of his life, and he seems to be right there. He's 25 years of age, and as Matt was saying, he's 7 minutes and 18 down, so he was the best placed of the breakaway men. And it looks like he believes in himself, or maybe he just doesn't believe in Grosshartner.
Yeah, clearly at this point of the race, although we've still got a considerable distance to go, the gap's actually gone up. It was down at 5:30. Now it's nudged up to just under 6 minutes. This is a fine display of strength by Tim Wellens. He's a rider that knows how to pace himself. We know he's in fine form by those 2 wins. He was at the Lotto Soudal training camp in Mallorca, going out with the riders, doing double days basically, going out 3 or 4 hours in the morning, then going out for another 3 hours in the afternoon. Clearly wanting to start the season with a bang, and he has done. But I still think at 25 years of age, he's still very young. I think this rider has a remarkable potential, but he's very versatile. He can time trial particularly well. He took out the overall the Tour of Poland, a double winner of the Eneco Tour, as well as winning over in Canada, one of the World Tour races over there. Got really distinctive styles. It's really forward on the saddle, looks quite low, but very efficient.
He looks like he could manage without a saddle, the way he uses it, but anyway, we won't dwell on that because it's making my eyes water. We're going to take ourselves a brief break, and we'll be back with more live here in Andalusia after this. Welcome back. Stage 2 of Andalusia, and this was always going to be a brutal day. 5 riders were up for it early on. There is now just 1 left up front, and you think, oh, poor chap. But when you know it's Tim Wellens, and when you know he's done this sort of thing before, as in done a strongman's day, in fact on more than 1 occasion. He took a stage on the Giro last year, stage 6 into Roccaraso. He was in just dominant form. He of course has doubled at the Eneco Tour, as we've mentioned, and he's up for this today, and in fact he's sitting at the back of his saddle, which actually thankfully makes at least it appear that it's more comfortable. But his lead is starting to ebb. He's having to do this all on his own. There's very little wind today, but he's generating his own with the pace that he is setting, and the chase is on. 46.8 kilometres with 5 minutes and 48. If he was in the company of some other motivated riders who are very capable, as he was earlier on, Jörg Priedler, the Austrian leading the King of the Mountains competition, and Felix Grosshartner, who was the last of the breakaway, to basically find themselves wanting in the company of this man from Lotto Soudal. Tim Wellens can be a monster on a day such as this, but unfortunately for him, there are some big beasts behind him, and they are hyper motivated, as you saw yesterday. Contador was not about to sit on his laurels. Oh no, he went for the attack. Valverde was equal to him, and really it was those two duking it out with others along for the ride, you might have thought. Pols was in the frame, so was Rosa and Michael Landa. We had Reichenbach as well as Izaguirre, who can time trial. He may be thinking about tomorrow, just keeping something in his legs. And I think that's the point, Matt Stevens. They don't want to invest too much today. They want to do it enough to keep the title within range and maybe impose themselves tomorrow on the time trial. The GC men, I'm talking, of which we have 6 riders really capable of winning this race.
Yeah, it was a really elite group that went clear yesterday, but and it's quite unusual the way this race has started out. There's an interesting interview with Alberto Contador, who said there was no real chance to bed in. Quite often in these short stage races, you get maybe a sprint stage to start things off, or more of a transitional stage, one for the puncheurs, but that was a really brutally difficult stage yesterday. And what you have to think of as well is the fact that Valverde's had quite a few races under his belt, but straight off the bat, Alberto Contador, in his first race in the colours for his new team, rides as we've seen him ride through over the last few years, just straight off the bat, attacking. That tremendous style he's got. But what that gives him is a real indication of how he's going. It's great for the spectators, it's great for fans of the sport, because it's a tremendous spectacle. But he rides with so much panache, attacking straight off, split the field to pieces. But what we saw was an elite group that went clear. But Team Sky rode a very, very canny race, and Wout Poels, who finished second on the stage. And when you look back at his recent performances in this race, he's won it overall, he's won the Queen stage, he's also won the time trial, although tomorrow's time trial isn't overly testing, it's quite flat. Actually, I think it's mostly downhill. It might suit another sort of rider, and I think, as you mentioned, Izagirre could be the danger in the time trial, although we know Poels could do well. So this is an opportunity on this final climb to the line to really get some significant time gaps in place, because tomorrow he's only 12k, so I don't think there'll be some particularly big time gaps tomorrow.
Interesting looking at the pack as they come up here, the main body of the peloton, and you're seeing a lot of riders protecting themselves. One of whom is Rigoberto Urán, Sebastian Reichenbach as well. They're both only 5 seconds down as Wellens takes this curve. In fact, he really 50p'd that. Look at the drop off at the side of the road there. Now, if they come in all together, somebody's going to clip off the edge there, and there's a danger with all that gravel of some punctures here. Gosh, it really is fractures at the side of the road. It's almost like they've laid a piece of carpet here on top of a rough bed. It's not very deeply metalled, let's put it that way. He now drifts over 6 minutes as there's been a bit of an easement, as everyone's starting to look to Movistar now to do the work. There's the leader, Alejandro Valverde, wearing red. Unfamiliar look as well to Wout Poels today. He is wearing the orange points jersey, which he's carrying on behalf, of course, of Alejandro Valverde, who leads that. Wearing the green jersey, was in the break earlier on, green jersey by rights, it looks like he'll be wearing it at the end of the day, Jörg Friedler, because he did well in some of the early climbs as well. In fact, was second in the King of the Mountain, adding 8 points, the first KOM that we've taken. Today, where we found ourselves right now in Pedalajar, that's what I'm calling it anyway, it probably means peddler. And here's one right now. There's your man in the rather fetching, groovy sort of, I think 80s throwback, wouldn't you say?
Looks more,
sort of design.
It does look more like a leader's jersey, and it's difficult for us to ask exactly what colour it is. On the road look, it looks orange, but it does look more like a blood orange with those little flashes. It looks like the inside of a blood orange. Interesting. We have. There's Vasil Kirienka. Tell you what though, look at this gap: 6 minutes and 8 seconds. Trek Segafredo riding hard on the front. I think the rider that's spending most time at the front at the moment is Mathias Brandley. They're on the second climb of the Puerta de Siete Pilillas, which is translated the climb of the 7 pillars, apparently.
I did that.
They'll be cresting that in about 1,500 metres time. But this is an impressive ride. Whatever happens today, you've got to look at Tim Wellens. This is impressive. People swapping turns on the front, and he's actually taking a little bit of time. Worst case scenario, he's actually pegging the peloton. And bear in mind as well, he's been out in front for about 130 Ks. This is a mightily impressive display. Over the top of this climb with 1,500 metres to go, he then has 15k of downhill before then commencing the penultimate climb of the day, which is, although it's a third category climb, it's an absolute brute.
We've been having some fun. Flicking through the phrase book and indeed picking random words and making a sentence. So here we go. Mi langosta violeta va a explotar. It means my purple lobster has just exploded. I don't know what circumstance you could possibly use that for, especially not in a restaurant. This man, he's snacking on everybody at the moment. It says 6 minutes and 3 he's got on everybody. And is he going to eschew a drink? Yes, he is. That was more of a chat than anything else, and he's got 1 kilometre to go before he gets to the top of this peak. Indeed, it's 7.1 kilometres and 5.9%. But, Matt, as we've seen, the climbs today, and we'll talk about the one that faces them ultimately at the end, are a bit mischievous because there's some very serious inclines along the way, even on the most benign rated climbs.
Well, exactly. There's not much flat at all on this course. He's got around 800-900 metres to the top of this climb. And as I said, thankfully for him, It's an opportunity. He's taking his gels there. What he's not doing is going to take a bottle. What you don't want to do on these long climbs, considering the amount of altitude gain today, you don't want to arbitrarily just take a bottle. That's another 500 grams of weight. You've got to think about when you feed, think how much weight you're going to carry up a climb. If he's going to take a bottle now, he needs to take it just over the top, have that for the descent, jettison that so it's nice and light for the climb. But talking about this climb in particular, it's almost in 3 stages. The penultimate climb is the Puerto de Torres. It's got it down as only 3rd category, and we've argued this before we came on air, didn't we?
Well,
it looks more like a 2nd or a 1st cat climb. It does start very gradually. It's a long old climb, about 13 Ks in length. Starts off quite steady, the first couple of Ks, 3.5%, 4%. Then kind of 6 Ks in, it rears up to 10, 14, 15 and 16%. It continues like that for about 3 kilometers before dipping up and then kicking up again. Then he'll drop off and then he'll commence the final climb to the line. So the next, well, 15 of the next 44 Ks, thankfully downhill, but the vast majority are uphill, and it is very, very difficult indeed. But look, 6 minutes 11, fine display.
Absolutely gobsmacking, to be honest, and he could take it all the way, Tim Wellens. It's just a question whether everyone else is motivated to burn themselves, which they'll feel fried at the end of today. Trek doing a whole lot of work at the moment. In fact, they've been doing the main body of it. This is helping, I think. Valverde, Alberto Contador, is bedded in. He'll try and do a cheeky one again. It's worth, at the top of the season, just being able to stretch yourself and actually prove something to yourself, as well as indeed to those you are doing battle against. Proving so many things at the moment is Tim Wellens. And finally, as it just eases off, and it's worth noting that the final climb of today does have a flat section, and we may have a very select sprint at the end. He is disrobing because the weather temperature is coming up. He's taken off the long sleeves. Suddenly they become short.
Well, that was his race.
This is his run down for glory, potentially.
Sorry, Colin, that was actually his radio.
Was it?
Again, just another few grams, trying to make himself as light as he can. But now, thankfully, he's got a nice 10, 15k plummet down this descent.
Sorry, I missaw it. There we are. Thank goodness we've got Matt Stevens here. Back in a moment. Welcome back. Welling up. Yeah, he's headed up. In fact, he's done a nice little cheeky descent, which has extended his gap by about 7 seconds or so. And there he is. That was his deficit overall, 7 minutes and 18. He'll do himself a lot of favours. He's not overly a major worry, I wouldn't have thought, because the gap will close. The question is, will he be caught? So is he a worry for Alberto Contador and Alejandro Valverde, who I think for many remain the favourites for this race? Take nothing away from Pols, Reichenbach, Rosa, Izagir, indeed Pino, Landa or Uran, who are still very much in the frame. I don't think Barguil's going to be there, and Pino looks like he's still a bit peaky after suffering tummy trouble in Valencia. Nonetheless, it's how these guys play it. They're only at the bottom of the climb that Pols has just dealt with. Sorry, Wellens has just dealt with, forgive me. He is away and he's got a decent margin, 6 minutes and 8. Now, the question is, can he hold it? We think he may well be caught on the very, very last couple of kilometres of the final climb. We'll take you through that when we get there, but we've got the none too small matter of a 15-kilometre descent. And in fact, Wellens is already on that. He's on a little pitch up and he'll be descending again. In fact, as we join him, he is. So this is a series of steps down. It will bring him to about the 150 kilometres mark of today. And so if you do the maths, that leaves him about just shy of 30 to go. So he's got 9 or so Ks remaining on this descent, albeit in steps. So he'll come to this little community and then drop off the little escarpment ridge to another descent. He's coming through at pace, and in fact he's extended it at the moment, 6:17. That's a measure back to the point on the climb where the pack have just reabsorbed, by the way, one of the early breakaway riders, Sandro Maurice. They'll find Antonio Nibali. In fact, I think they already have. Jörg Friedler will be found, and likewise Grosshartner, the CCC Sprandi rider, also from Austria. So a couple of Austrians were in the break, but on his own is the Belgian Tim Wellens, 25 years of age, sprightly, up for it, on form, and looking brutal.
He's looking very, very fit. He's looking very comfortable. He's pedaling really nicely on the climb. He was pedaling on quite a low gear, so not putting too much stress on his legs, so keeping a kind of remarkably efficient rhythm. But when he gets onto these flatter sections as well, that little false flat, he gets into a real aerodynamic. Again, his cornering could be better at some points, but I don't think he's overly familiar with this summit going through these towns, but is soon back into his rhythm. But he almost looks, when you look at the position that Tim Wellens rides in, and we are familiar, although he's only 25 years of age, he seems like he's been around for years. He gets into a position that's almost akin to riding on a TT bike, forward on the saddle, low at the front, remarkably aerodynamic and very, very efficient indeed.
I've got a feeling that at the bottom of Mancha Real, where he is at the moment, there is a nasty little turn, and I think it took some prisoners in the Vuelta. I'll try and remember which one, and I'm hoping that he keeps it sensible. You saw the way he took that sort of three-phase corner there, where he went all the way around a building. So he came up one side of it, if you like, went round 2 90-degree turns, and he nearly got caught out on the exit to the final corner there, because a little bit of paving, nobody with a pennant or a whistle. And I'm wondering, I'm just hoping that these guys also managed to cope. 6 minutes and 10. They're on the first of their little descents. The Puerto Sedapias, the 7 pillars of wisdom, presumably. Well, let's hope they keep their minds up the road here and don't get too distracted. Look at them, they're all battling, and they're all in colour order, which is fascinating, and that's for the final push of the last test of the day. Now we start climbing with about 27 k's to go, and that's where the entree, if you like, there are 2 categorized climbs within it, including the final test that brings us to the line. It does flatten out with about 3 k's remaining, but still has an incline to it. It would be very wearing, but it could be a pacey finish for the climbers. But Matt, there's some real chew 'em up and spit 'em out moments here for the pack, and I think they're going to be hitting those. What, with about 20 k's remaining, is where we get those horrible hairpins and where some big gaps are going to get thrown up.
No, definitely, as you said, the final 2 climbs kind of split in half, and I think that the categorization is a very interesting one. I think a lot of riders, when they finish today's stage, will look back and think, well, if you hit the bottom of the climb thinking it's going to be a 3rd cat, I think it's going to be quite a shock to several of the riders. As I said, 3 or 4 kilometres in, it pitches up to 14 and 15%, then keeps going. You've got a crash.
There you go.
It looks like
Wellens himself.
Well,
what did I tell you? Here is the corner, and it can happen to the very best. Said he would get spat out, and I'm worried about this section here.
That's dodgy there,
Look
isn't
at it. I've seen it before, and he is coming through here, and he's taken a tumble now. It says 6 minutes and 8. How quickly did he get back up? Teams here as well. They want to check that everything is okay. We might have a bit of a magic spanner, but the commissaires are here as well. Let's have a look at it. This is the corner I was telling you about. Little roundabout. Now watch the back wheel, I suspect. Yep. There you go. And we talked about his questionable cornering, but I think there was a bit of fluid on the ground there.
I just think that was one of those things. These roads can be quite dusty. It looks as if there was a little bit of moisture. That could have been the sweat as he hit the deck and slid along, but definitely a little bit of diesel perhaps on the road there in the corner. I think hopefully what will happen here is the commissaire at the head of the race will radio back to the other teams and make sure that the riders have really approach that particular roundabout with caution, because of the feeling that another few riders may come unstuck. I don't think Wellens was at a particularly acute angle around that corner. That was just the luck of the draw. Bad luck, I think, played a part there.
To be honest, if you're going to have a fall, have one like that.
I think
he dissipated all the energy, didn't he?
It did.
He didn't get overly burnt. It wasn't a high-speed moment, and it wasn't slow enough to cause problems as well. He's basically picked up an awful lot of dirt. That's diesel dust on the roundabout.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, if there's no real plus sides to falling off, let's face it, but what you will get is a real rush of adrenaline.
Yeah.
And that will inadvertently help him for a few Ks. He's an experienced rider, but those sorts of crashes are a real shock to the system. You get a little bit stunned, but thankfully he got up. The only negative aspect of sometimes crashing at low speed, the weight isn't always dissipated. They're the kind of crashes where you could be unfortunate enough to break a wrist or a collarbone, but thankfully he got up and he's riding again. And it doesn't look as if he's broken his rhythm too much. Still got that very fluid rhythm, shoulders hardly rocking, pedaling a cadence about 90-95, still looks efficient, but that's going to be a definite shock to him.
It will be, and once the adrenaline gets washed away, not all of it, you understand, and it's how you react psychologically as well as everything else, but chemically that's going to dissipate, and he'll start to feel the pain and stiffen up. Possibly tonight he may have a rough one, but he could carry it all the way. 6 minutes and 5 is the gap that he's being declared at the moment as the peloton come into Mancha Real. Isn't it amazing? We almost crystal balled it today, but there's no such thing as an entirely safe road course. There are always biting points, and occasionally you get chewed up. Sometimes you get spat out, but right now Tim Wellens is making the best of this at the moment. Will it start to have an impact deeper into the major climb that he's going to be on after the next little step down in his downhill run that will bring him to about 27 k's out? That's when he climbs, and that's when I think we're going to find out just how badly he's been affected by this. Join us after the break. Myself, Carlton Kirby and Matt Stevens will carry you up this mountain. Not on our backs, you understand. Back in a moment. Welcome back. Just over 32 kilometres remaining, and it is bottles being offered up here. I wonder if this is a little cheeky one. There's the pennant man with a whistle, and this is his zone where Wellens went down. Now, are they all going to get through? I'm just looking how dark the road is on that side, and everyone has given it a lot of respect, and that's part of the reason. Oh, no, it's definitely fluid on the deck, and most of CCC's Brandy Polkovic have been caught here. Now, those who have made it through, safest place to be would have been those up towards the fore. Wanty as well have taken a big hit. Definitely fluid on the roundabout. I wonder whether they shouldn't have called it on the essentially the wrong side of the road. It would have been a safer thing to do, knowing that Wellens had gone down and was on fluid, and a whole load of riders have just been caught out. I don't think there'll be a wait up. Depends on who has been caught out, but Trekker here, so Contador's okay. Movistar were towards the fore, they're okay. Sky likewise, and let's have a look who's been most badly affected.
Looks another rider off the back just gone down as well. One of the top sport Vlaanderen riders is one of the Gazprom Rust Vela riders also came down, but I think, as you said, Carlton, most of the riders from the main teams on general classification, I think all the Cannondale riders went through as well, but I think about 5 or 6 riders came to grief, and even riders who've been detached and coming back through the peloton. You can just see the dark patches on the apex of that bend. Here it is again.
One of the Cofidis riders has gone down and hit hard. I think he's shouldered the paving here. Goodness me. Well, we've had a preview of it. Why on earth didn't they take the left-hand side? Why on earth didn't they take the left-hand side? And I'm afraid that one of the Cofidis boys is out of the race, joining 2 others. But this
looks like a collarbone,
yes,
potentially,
it does.
doesn't it?
Holding the head. That's exactly what it is. Wow. There we
good.
are. We take no pride in describing it, I'm afraid, but warning signs were there for everyone to see, Matt. Tim Wellens looked like, as we were discussing on the break, that he's got away with it. Luckily, he doesn't look too badly hurt at all.
Very luckily. I say he did come down heavily, but thankfully he did skid, as you said earlier, Carlton, dissipating the impact of that fall. But he's up. Clearly, he's on a very, very good day. He's inspired. He's feeling good. He's going to get the extra surge of adrenaline which comes with an incident like that. But just looking at his form on the bike, he probably won't even be able to, he won't be feeling the pain now of the crash itself. That will happen later on at night. He'll have the bed sheet sticking to, no doubt, some gravel rash underneath those shorts and his shoulders. But the pain that he's feeling today is the pain that's in his legs. It's the lactic acid coursing around his body. It's all about riding at threshold, riding at his limit. That is a race pain face. I think he's almost forgotten about that crash now. And amazingly, he's kept that rhythm and still holding the bunch at bay. And
he's calling for assistance from the car. I'm not sure whether he just doesn't trust the bike. And that's the thing. You're thinking all over the bike at the moment. You're just hoping that everything's where it should be. And it can be nervous times. You might want a bike check here.
Well, there's a couple of times I've crashed. You get back on your bike. Quite often, if your bars are really, skewed, you'll straighten your bars up and get going. But quite often, you'll get back on your bike, not think about looking at if your bike's set up right, start riding. And only when the adrenaline has subsided and you're back into your normal rhythm, then you look at the bike and think, oh my God, I'm riding completely twisted. And it's sometimes 10 or 15 minutes later, you look and think, oh, my bars are slightly askew. But I think he just wanted to go back, make sure he's got enough nutrition on board, getting another gel, making sure he's hydrated, because this last 30k now, this is when in a moment, Carlton, for our lead rider, Tim Wellens, the road just starts to pick up.
We did get a split because of the crash. I'm not suggesting there's been a wait up, but I think there's been a fight back on. In fact, definitely no wait up.
No wait up with that face.
Definitely not.
That's a non-waiting face I've ever seen one.
They are eating into this gap and hoovering up the plankton, as we say. 5 minutes and 12. Well, there we are. It's a sizable gap. Is it enough? Well, potentially it would have been for Tim Wellens, but we don't know what the effect of the crash that he sustained and others have as well. Still waiting for news as to which of the Cofidis riders it was that that hit the deck. We'll bring you that as soon as we have it. I think it was Hofstede, who's quite a rangy character for them, but we'll get confirmation of that in a moment. 5 minutes and 8, 5 minutes and 9. He was on 5:06 before there was a crash within the pack. They've now reassembled themselves, and so there's a few teams just getting back in. I haven't really spoken about Direct Energy, who are here, by the way. We'll see how there are some days for some of the quicker men later on. Sevilla's got a long introduction, and in fact they run into Coin at the end on stage 5. You might see some of the faster men like Brian Coquard, etc. It's about the baroudeurs, the battlers today, and a man who came into the day, as per yesterday, for the likes of Contador, with a knife between his teeth, and he's absolutely gone for it. Hooking up the aero. In fact, when he rides, he's one of the most aero riders in the peloton, isn't he?
We were just saying earlier on, as he was riding through the town, he navigated his way through, had that tumble, but once he gets back into his rhythm, especially on these long stretches of road, generally rests his forearms, as he's doing right on cue. Thank you very much, Tim. Rests his forearms on the bars, and it basically, as near as damn it, replicates the kind of position these riders have on a TT bike. If you look at his stem, just linking up the handlebars, there's a negative inversion there to try and get his position even lower. So although he's quite a tall rider, he's very light, 65 kilograms, he gets very, very low frontally, and he's just remarkably efficient as he cuts through the air. It's almost as if he is actually riding in a TT position when he gets away.
He's approaching the climb. In fact, he's on the early part of it, and the time is starting to ebb. He's just lost about 15 seconds in the last kilo. That's how quickly the approach is being made by everybody else. Interesting to see that Oran's team have done absolutely nothing as far as the chase is concerned, but Cannondale are intact as a unit. Rigoberto had an off day yesterday. I think he may well, he's the kind of guy who can throw a switch and suddenly bounce back. He has a racing day in his legs, and then all of a sudden life is very happy for him. Now you see the dip, the ultimate dip between the second Cadbury climb and indeed the third. That's where we are. Oh, they've thankfully lit it up for us. This is where the hurt really begins. They're on the foothills, if you like, of a climb. However, despite the fact there is a category 3, I don't understand how they've done this, because in brutal. About 2K's time, they're suddenly going to be hitting what, Matt?
Well, as you said, Carlton, it starts relatively benignly, 3.5%, 4%, then actually flattens out to only 1.5% to 2%. Then, as you said, it really does start to kick up. And there's actually 4 kilometres. Average gradient 10.3%. Within that, there's sections of 14, 15 and 16%. So midway through the penultimate climb of the day, it is absolutely brutal, and I think that is where Tim Wellens will start to suffer. But as we see Alberto Contador aboard his bespoke custom Project 1 Trek, what team will take it up? Will we see Alberto Contador go early, or will he wait till we've crested the third cat climb and we hit the first cat climb to the finish line? It'll be interesting to see which rider starts the ball rolling in terms of the attacks.
If they're going to find time, they're going to find it between 25 and indeed 20, in fact 18. About 25 out to about 18 to go. That's the toughest part of the day. And so he's got 2 kilometres of well, respite, let's put it that way. And that clock's been locked at 4:54 for quite some time. It did have the number 5 minutes there. In fact, it had the number 8 minutes earlier on today. But Wellens decided to shed out the last remaining, if you like, compatriot from the breakaway. That's Grosshartner. You can be a compatriot without being a fellow countryman, by the way. If you describe a group of those fighting together. So, yes, Grosshartner was the last to go. In fact, the pack are now eating into the gap. It's a lovely surface, I'll give them that, save for in town where it was a bit cut up. We believe we had some diesel spill, which took Wellens to the deck, and several others as well today. What drama.
Indeed, it's a very dramatic finale. And if you just look at Wellens, he's bumped and bruised, and it just shows, I think, incidents like this, it just shows how brave and how hard these professional cyclists are. They get up, they dust themselves down. As long as there's nothing broken, they will continue. And even saying that, many riders have gone on in the past. Alberto Contador being one of them back in the Tour de France a couple of years back, rode on with a fracture to his leg. They will just keep going until they fall. Absolutely fascinating battle, and a wonderful display of bravery and panache by Tim Wellens out in front. And meanwhile, we've got this duo in front of the peloton. That's Matthias Brendley, the former world hour record holder. and Christian Knees of Germany and Team Sky sat on his wheel in the blue.
4 minutes and 16, the clock's just readjusted by about 30 seconds. So I don't know whether there's a transponder relay issue. I think it's somebody's thumb, basically, on part of the course. So the gap, I think it's now trustable at just around 4 minutes and 15. It's hovering around there, but the time's still clicking away. As you can see, the gap is closing. Has Wellens got enough to deliver this? It would be one heck of a victory if he has. Just under 4 minutes is the gap that Tim Wellens has on the chasing pack, and they are chasing. In fact, the bit is between the teeth of Trek Segafredo, working for Alberto Contador. He knows that if he's going to be able to distance the likes of Alejandro Valverde, who leads this race, also wearing red, rather confusingly. It's red everywhere today. It's the red leader's jersey for Valverde. Handily, he's got a big green M upon his breast as well. But they're starting to wrestle the climb, and we said if the most punishing point would be from about now to around 18 kilometres to go. The clock has been tipping down. In fact, it went rather wildly the wrong way. Tim Wellens is the last man in the break standing from that breakaway, which was 5 riders at the top of the day. Felix Grosshartner, the Austrian from CCC Sprandi Polkovici in the orange, stayed with Wellens for quite some time. But around 20 k's ago, Wellens decided he was going to do this all on his own. He then takes a tumble in one of the tighter turns within a little village nearby. We're now at the Olive Sea, through these olive groves and Mancha Real. You can have a real mancha at the top if olives are your thing. But the man who's eating into the mountain at the moment is Tim Wellens. He's got an advantage of 3 minutes and 53. The breakaway has essentially been caught, and so the pack are now, well, are they motivated? Wellens had a deficit at the top of the day of 7 minutes and 18. He now leads by 3 minutes and 50, so he's not a threat to the overall. It's a question of whether he's got what it takes. If everyone starts attacking each other, the principals who can win this race overall. I don't believe that is Tim Wellens, because he's still, well, he's going to have a 4 minute deficit at least, I imagine, by the end of today. He's been brave, he's been down, he's got back on the bike, he's used his adrenaline, and right now he's got to show his class, of which we know he has plenty. Stage winner from the Giro d'Italia, twice a winner of the Erico Tour, and taking 2 trofeos locally not that long ago, within the last couple of weeks. So he's on form, and, well, will he make it? Matt Stevens.
It's hanging in the balance at the moment. The time tumbled a bit. I think there was a bit of a correction on the GPS, but I think it's settled now at a reasonably realistic time. When they crest the top of this King of the Mountains, we're going to take our own time check just to make sure we've got as accurate a time gap as possible. But Wellens still holding steady around just under 4 minutes now. It's Christian Knees of Team Sky, the tall German powerhouse, one of the riders of Team Sky that spends an inordinate amount of time on the front, just towing the peloton along. It's him and Matthias Brendley who've been leading the bunch since we've come on air, in fact. So essentially 2 riders versus 1, and he hasn't conceded too much time. And here he is, battle-scarred, but not bowed at all. That real familiar style, just pedalling away. But I just wonder how much he has really got left in the tank, because as you said, Carlton, the ascent to the line is absolutely brutal, hardly any respite at all.
Well, your wind is your enemy, and this man gets into the best aero position that I think many, even of the stars, would probably envy. It's interesting as well, people like Alberto Contador kind of rely on the fact that he's so lightweight and delivers so much power. He doesn't overly think, it seems, about aero, particularly on a climb, but Wellens is engaged in exactly that. Of course, he's on his own, so there's no hiding place for him. Wearing the blood orange, by the way, jersey, which is the points jersey, on behalf of Valverde is Wout Poels, who sits second in the standings. Valverde wears the red jersey. The King of the Mountains jersey is number 86, Jörg Friedler from Sunweb. Looks like the old Giant outfit, black stripe on a white background. In fact, they've inverted it. Yes, he wears the green jersey, so that's perhaps unfamiliar to you. 22.8 kilometres to go. We've seen a few kicks. This is the last section of about 2.1%, so it's a little flat a bit. Wellens is about to hit the most punishing part of the climb, and it's part of a category 3, sort of an intermediate classification. I don't know why that's the case, because this extends over about the next 4 or 5 kilometres and peaks when it does, at around 16% within the turn.
It does. Well, when the road starts to pitch up steep, it goes up to 10%. Then it holds steady for 4K, an average of 10.3, and that is very, very steep indeed. And as we suggested earlier, maximum pitches of 15 and 16%. Then it dips just before we go to the tops. There is a slight bit of respite about 2 kilometres from the top, but then it drags on again to 9%. Then there is this 4-kilometre section of downhill. So a negative percentage, or we've got a bit of a wave there from Mr. Nibali, the brother of Vincenzo Nibali, Antonio Nibali, who was in the breakaway earlier, on bottle duties today.
Antonio Nibali just been caught, one of the breakers earlier on today. Sandro Maurice of Wanty Group Gobert was the first of the breakaway boys to be caught. Jörg Priedler, in fact I think it was he, of the King of the Mountains jersey, the green jersey, also absorbed. And Grosshartner of CCC Sprandi Polkovici is about to be. The gap though, on your screen, just over 3.5 minutes, is the gap between Tim Wellens, who was part of the original breakaway. In fact, here is the King of the Mountains jersey, rather shishi, and the CCC Sprandi rider, that's Felix Grosshartner. So Jörg Priedler, who's got himself some mountains points, did a great job. Nice to see them, because we haven't really dwelt on them today, and there's the pack just coming round to reabsorb them. So Priedler and Grosshartner will mean that 4 of the 5 men from the original breakaway, which got a gap of up to 8 minutes, have been caught, leaving only Tim Wellens up the road. Wellens, who took a tumble in or on a roundabout which had some diesel on it, we believe, because when the pack came through there were several riders tumbled, and one of Cofidis, I'm afraid, is out of the race with a broken clavicle. Still waiting for confirmation as to who that is. We know who this is up front though, it's Tim Wellens, and right now he's going for this. I think he may well make this, because the toughest part of the climb will be dealt with in about 3 kilometres time.
I think the awful part is the fact that there's an unrelenting gradient for 4Ks, and I think that will be the real test. Clearly, Wellens, we know he's in good form. We've talked a lot about his victories already this year, 2 back-to-back victories in Mallorca, but he's been away for a long time now. He's going to be at the back end of his reserves, although it's a 180k stage, and he's spent the last hour or so out in front, so no opportunity at all, save for the descents, to get any respite. So burning through those calories, burning through his reserves. But when the road pitches up, it's a real test. Quite often on the flatter sections and the undulating sections, you can roll the bike along reasonably efficiently, even if you're fatigued. But once the road starts pitching up, gravity comes into play. Although he's a very light rider at 65 kilograms, that's when it'll be a real test of whether he's going to make it or not today.
Just look at who wants to play. It's busy down there. Alejandro Valverde, he's wearing red today, it's the leader's jersey, so don't confuse him with likes of Alberto Contador. Indeed, Tim Wellens up front, everyone's in red this year. Cofidis in red, and in fact down a man, I'm afraid. Still waiting to get confirmation of who the rider was that took a tumble. Thanks for all your kind thoughts, by the way, on Twitter. It's always great to hear from you. It's been such a busy race, this, right from the very start. We were climbing on a category 1, no respite at all on the opening stage. This is the Queen stage today, which ends up the Pena de Aguila, and it's a real proper nasty spiteful test, and we're on it right now. If you'd like to spare your thoughts, by the way, it's at Carlton Kirby, or indeed at Real Stevens. That's Stevens with a PH in the middle. 19.8 to go, and they're motivated, and Sky have joined the chase right now. You can see that it's Wout Poels who's wearing what we describe as a blood orange jersey. Looks quite yellow, to be honest, a bit mustardy, but flecks of red as well, the ubiquitous red, and the green of Cannondale also in here. Francis de Jure have also been quiet today. What do you think they could pull out of the bag? Thibaut Pinot looked a little bit spare yesterday. What are your thoughts on Reichenbach's chances?
Well, Reichenbach looked very, very strong. He was in the lead group of 6 riders that went clear, of course, on the final climb of the day, under the impetus of some real stinging attacks by an absolutely rampant Alejandro Valverde. And I must admit, Reichenbach did that attack with about 600 metres to go, still managed to hold on and get 3rd. He did sprint, but nobody could match Valverde. But Reichenbach looking good. But as you said, Thibaut Pinot, although he didn't quite make that front group, he only was 5 seconds behind with Rigoberto Urán, and I think that's a pretty good indicator, considering he's come off the back of quite a nasty stomach bug in in the Tour of Valencia. So I think he's going to be pretty happy with that. Only 5 seconds adrift of some riders that are clearly in good form. I think that will give him hope for today. But I think today's finale is a little bit more difficult than yesterday. And yeah, there's no room to regroup at all. It's that horrible grind all the way to the line.
So, it's not going to be pleasant for this man, but it may well be glorious. 3 minutes and 25 he's got with 19 Ks remaining, and what looks like a highly motivated Trek and Sky team chasing on. Sky have come here with all guns blazing. Vasyl Kirienka is, of course, their battering ram, if you like. Great at a moment such as this to protect riders. They didn't have to use him too much yesterday. Well, Poles, Diego Rosa, Michael Landa, and Michael Nieve as well. These are great climbers and all capable of winning this race, if it wasn't for the likes of Alejandro Valverde and a tremendously on form Alberto Contador. Contador's asked for his team to be up to the front here because he usually likes to operate with one guiding rider only when he gets to the mountains. Who he'll lean on, not quite sure, but Fabio Fellini did a lot of work yesterday and then kind of ran out of juice, didn't he?
Yeah, well, Fellini's hit the ground running this year. He's got a victory himself at the Tour of Villagüella a week or so, well, the weekend over in Italy. But he's also got his faithful domestique, Jesus Hernandez, who's also here today. He was climbing well, so I think he'll look to Fellini and Hernandez. But what he'll want, as will Alejandro Valverde, he'll want an infernal pace to be set. It's been infernal all day. In fact, it was very, very tough yesterday. Alberto Contador rides better off a hard pace, as does Alejandro Valverde, but that's where the similarities end. They're both very different sorts of riders, and it was interesting that Contador wasn't overly happy with the tactical play of Alejandro Valverde yesterday. Contador went clear early on, attacked on several occasions. He was countered each time by Valverde, but it was only halfway up the mountain until Valverde decided to work, and Contador has suggested that if they'd have worked earlier, they would have battled it out between the two, and it could have been a little bit clearer cut. But whilst we're looking at this climb as a gap at 3:16, Valverde leads, then you have Poles, Reichenbach, Rosa, Izagirre and Contador all at the same time. Then you have a clutch of 4 riders at only 5 seconds, including Pino, Mikel Landa, Rigoberto Urán and Warren Barguil. So this race is still very finely balanced.
He's coming into Pena Aguirre. This is Torres, it says, but let's have a look. Not Toro, you understand. Nasty hairpin. Let's hope it's clean. He's been down once. He'll take this very, very carefully. In fact, just chops the nose off it. Absolutely beautifully done. Pena de Aguirre, I think they're coming into. We'll see in a few moments' time. It's a little dip within the climb, and so he is going to take the category 3 at Mojon Blanco in just a few moments' time. I think that is white chestnuts. There you go. Pick that out of the air. I don't know how, but anyway, it's a Marron Blanco. But anyway, Torres is where they come from. Where do these things come from? 17.6 kilometers remaining then. So he's got something to put back into the legs. Once he gets over the peak, he's got another downhill run, a sizable one, to La Mesa, and that's where the grand finale, if you like, of 9.8 kilometers will be carrying him home, despite the fact that it flattens out towards the very last. 3 minutes and 4 is the gap that we've got right now. Do you want to pick somebody for today? Are you going to go for Wellens?
I'd love to go for Wellens. I really like Tim Wellens. I did actually bump into him while he was training solo. He'd already been out. It was late afternoon in Mallorca. He'd already done 3 hours in the morning, had lunch, then gone out again. Only just about caught him on the climb, and then I blew and had to let him go on his way, really. But no, a lovely rider, but quite a solitary figure, but very, very, extremely talented. And I think over the next few years, I think we're going to see some great things from this rider, perhaps even a future world road champion, and maybe a Grand Tour contender. 65 kgs. Look at the kind of power he's putting out. He's got to be one for the Grand Tours in the next few years.
Cannondale said they were hiding. Well, no longer. Plenty of bushels around here, but they're not hiding anymore. And this is for Urán. Yesterday, he actually stuck with Valverde and Contador as they duked it out. And as Matt was saying, Contador saying, why on earth didn't we just go mano a mano? Work together and then sort this one out between us. They could have carved up the big steak. But no, unfortunately, they dragged others along with them because Valverde didn't want to work. He was playing a game of poker. In the end, of course, he is the leader, so why not? It kind of worked for him. He also potentially may have saved his legs for today. As the pack come through Torres, the gap's now 2 minutes and 44. We've still got 16.4 kilometers to go. Can Wellens make it? Hope he does. But clearly, amongst the GC boys, They're attack-minded, and Cannondale have come here looking for a fight.
It's great to see Cannondale riding hard on the front. I think they've got a right to do that as well. They've got Aran sitting in 9th overall, you know, only 5 seconds behind. And Rigoberto Aran, on his day, he's a former Colombian time trial champion. He won that brutally difficult stage a couple of years back. I think it was the 2014 or 2015 Giro when he took the pink jersey, 40k hilly time trial. Tomorrow's time trial a lot shorter, but clearly Rigoberto Aran has started well this season. He's going to want to impress, but they've got a team of some great climbers. They've got Pierre Roland, let's not forget about him. Hugh Carthy only finished at 1:29. Yeah. The lanky Brit who I think the best is yet to come from him.
The Lancashire long shot.
Indeed, indeed. And then of course you've got Christian Corrin, Nate Brown, and Simon Clark can get over these smaller climbs as well. So it's good to see Cannondale Drapac on the front looking after Rigoberto Aran. As you say, you know, when Rigo's on form, he could be a danger.
Well, he's a bit like a switch. As soon as he gets some riding in his legs, bang, he's away, as opposed to pop. Yeah, I think we're going to have to change Hugh Carthy from the Lancashire long shot to the Lancashire hot shot, because he's got a Cannondale contract.
When I said lanky, that was a bit derogatory. I didn't mean that. He's a lovely lad. I really like Hugh Carthy. I've got a lot of time for him.
Nothing wrong with lanky. Yeah.
Just sounds a bit derogatory. I didn't mean it that way. Sorry, Hugh. You're not listening, but if you're watching the highlights.
His dad is.
Good lad.
16 kilometres then remaining, 2 minutes 25. Can Wellens make it? Is he your pick?
My heart says yes, but my head suggests that he may not make it. Oh, I just don't know. I want him to look at that face. That is the face of determination and belief.
So mean here.
But if he does get caught, it's going to be very close. But right, my worry is the grade of the last 8K. I'm going to pick, do you know what? I'm going to pick Valverde again. I just think he's on such good form, and I just think he's on good form. Predictable.
You think Wellens won't, I think Wellens will. You're picking Valverde, I'm picking Aran.
Okay.
There we go, 15.8 kilometres to go, 9 to the top of this particular peak. Goodness me. It's got a whiff of a sort of a Spanish Mick Bennett, doesn't it?
Does look like a Spanish Mick Bennett.
Yeah, Mick's probably watching. Hope he is. Oh, and as if by magic, all of the principals are here. There is Valverde, Matt's pick. Well, why not? To be honest, they've all been leading on Trek Segafredo today. They've done most of the chasing, and Alberto Contador may well have something to say about that. He usually gets quite vocal at the dinner table. We'll see if we can find anything out from him. Francis and Joe suddenly showing their hand as well. Thibaut Pinot working for Sebastian Reichenbach today. You can almost be certain. Pinot's not out of this, but he's 5 seconds down. But Reichenbach looked the stronger of the men from France in their traditional white and blue here. Well, it appears that they're all looking at each other to do the work. And this plays into the hands of Tim Wellens.
I think they're waiting. They're obviously 2 minutes 21 behind Wellens. They've just got to go down that dip. Wellens is now on the final 2-kilometre drag to the top of the hill. Then, thankfully for him, he's got 4K of downhill, which he'll really welcome. But now it's Team Sky taking it up on the front. That's David Lopez. You've got Aymar Zubeldia just behind him. Then you have the almost statuesque figure of Vasil Kirienka, hardly moving his shoulders at all, in a world of his own. And then just behind it, looks like it's the race leader, Wout Poels, but he's not. He's in that points classification, but Wout Poels definitely a danger as well. And there he is, grimacing in yellow. So Team Sky now taking up the chase.
Oh, this is absolutely fascinating. Who's going to reach out? David Lopez doing a fantastic job. Diego Rosa was very good yesterday, by the way, on debutante form. Vasil Kirienka, I wonder if he was in any other team, whether he'd been winning up mountains, to be honest. The way he grinds into them, sacrificing himself for his team, is the ultimate. He's described as a diesel engine. I think that's rather unkind. I think he could put a lot of very good riders to the sword if he was allowed to do his own thing. He does get the head occasionally, and in fact he's down here as team principal. He's got the principal number, number 11, but clearly he's working for both Poels and indeed everybody else. Poels sitting second at the moment.
Yeah, Poels sitting second, but Team Sky lead the team classification. They've got Diego Rosa, as you already mentioned. Great debut ride for him yesterday. Looked mightily impressive on the climb. He finished 4th, but then they've also got options with Mikel Landa. Landa did a couple of attacks just to soften things up, and then his teammates went over the top. And also they've got Mikel Nieve, the King of the Mountains, of course, in last year's Giro d'Italia. He's only at 31 seconds, so Team Sky had got some options up their sleeve, and I think they have the strongest team in depth in relation to climbing power. So they've got riders who can ping themselves up the road. They'll then get shut down and they can go again. So it's interesting to see how Sky are riding at the moment. So Diego Rosa just sat in the middle of the peloton and still It's David Lopez setting that smooth tempo.
1 minute and 56. It's tumbling. Oh,
it is.
And as we say, it sort of kicks back to 2 as the transponder tries to sort itself out. Just looking at Jaime Zubeldia, did a lot of hard work yesterday, and yeah, he's been around for quite some time. Zubeldia, he's in his mid-30s, but still manages to wrestle up tests such as this. 14.6 kilometers to go. Sky, Trek back in and engaged, and yet again Movistar just sitting in. I wonder how long they can get away with this. There's Poles in the blood orange jersey he's wearing on behalf of race leader Alejandro Valverde. A minute and 51, and that clock seems to be readjusting itself, and it's not good reading for Tim Wellens and the boys from Lotto Soudal. I'm just looking who is prepared to pounce here, getting ready to impose themselves, and there's plenty, a lot of options. Yeah,
there's still a sizable group here. The pace is steady at the moment. It's not infernal, but I think we'll see once they get over the top of this climb. They've just gone down that dip. We've got about 1,500 meters before they crest this climb, then the drop down, and then the final first category climb to the line will start. Will we see Movistar attacking? Will we see Alberto Contador attack? I'm just interested to see which rider's going to take it up first. Difficult to call at the moment.
We haven't mentioned Izaguirre, and in fact, Javier Moreno as well. Likewise, he's great on a short time trial. It could be that Moreno might be thinking about making amends, but Izaguirre, he sits in 5th place, and you can see Bahrain Merida, another team wearing red, but they've got blue accents, a little bit of gold sprinkled in there, courtesy of somebody in Bahrain. But Bahrain Merida are making a nuisance of themselves. They start to come to the fore. 95 seconds is the advantage, less than that right now. And so I'm afraid it looks like this is going to be bad news. We'll get a clock on this one potentially. 16:34:03 is Central European time. Don't forget, if sharing the meridian of GMT, of course, is Portugal, and they'll be with you from the Algarve. It's Rob Hatch and Brian Smith directly after this. Enjoy that. Incidentally, Velon have provided with some rider data, and we'll be phasing that in, rolling it in tomorrow, and it's something that we're going to be using, particularly on the Giro d'Italia, where we will be live, of course, throughout, as we are with all of the Grand Tours. So something for you to enjoy and conjure with tomorrow. Well, Poles wearing the orange, being marked out at the moment. But Jon Izaguirre, he's a big danger man, you know. He can time trial, and tomorrow he's going to find time. And I think Valverde and Contador will want to put a little bit of a gap between themselves and he on this day.
Yeah, well, in the shorter time trials, Alejandro Valverde can put out a decent time trial. But as you say, the former teammates of the race leader is a sensational time trialist, and it's got a wonderful position on his TT bike, remarkably efficient. But it could be quite close tomorrow. Only 12 Ks. I think we'll only see gaps of sort of 10 or 15 seconds amongst the leaders or the GC protagonists. That's why it's so important that they race this finish today. But I think one thing, let's look at this. So it's got 1 minute and 11 seconds is the lead. So. Well, 1 minute and 3 it's saying there. I think it's slightly over that, actually. I did time that. So about 1 minute and 10, 1 minute and 11 for our leader now. I must admit, it's not looking good. He'll be glad of this little descent, but once that climb starts to bite, well, I wish Tim Wellens all the best, but it's going to be very difficult for him to hold out in front.
Well, he's on a descent at the moment, and it doesn't unwind until he gets to 10 to go. A little bit less than that, 9.8. So, watch that ticker. The GPS is correct. And so it's been accurate today. He's on this downhill section, a little bit of stepping to it, but generally speaking, it's about 4%, so not overly alpine, let's put it that way. Won't set any speed records, but he'll keep up a decent pace once he gets up to it. But you can see the peloton are motivated, and they're closing it. It's going to be less than a minute before you know it. And on the climb, that's when I believe that Valverde and Contador will attack, and Izaguirre will stay with them.
I think the psychology, I mean, because this is a race that's so early in the year, all the riders here have seen what Alejandro Valverde has done over the last couple of weeks, especially in Murcia, that 70k individual time trial. He basically saw the bunch off by just over 2 minutes. They saw his demonstration yesterday. So what the rider, I think we might see apart from Alberto Contador, I think we might see a slightly more cautious approach by the other teams. That's why we're seeing Movistar sitting back. Movistar, Valverde's so strong, so full of confidence. It's like, well, you chase. We know that Tim Wellens is no threat overall. You set the tempo, and I think we'll see Movistar perhaps lighting up right at the bottom of the climb. But I think Movistar is sitting back because I have a feeling that the riders are a little bit afraid of Alejandro Valverde at the moment. His demonstration yesterday was imperious, basically. I think the only rider to really challenge him at the moment is Alberto Contador.
Through the olive sea, some of you asking what the trees are. You can see as well that they've dried out. They've produced a dry patch underneath the trees. That's so that when the fruit falls, if you're not going to net it, you need very, very dry terrain. So they don't spoil when they hit the deck. So they've cleared away the leaves and all the litter, which is why it looks like they've got these big circles underneath. I worry for every corner that Wellens takes.
So do I.
He is not the best cornerer, but he is extraordinarily brave. And he's already been down once today, and our worriment came to the fore, indeed was realised. Now, he's got about 1,300 metres before he starts climbing. He's got a 56-second advantage. He's also got, unfortunately for him, Vasil Kirienka, who's got his laser eyes on, and he's chasing him. Through the olive sea, making waves out front, Tim Wellens, and now he has to take on the final test. It could be a glorious ending. We believe that there are fresher legs behind him, and 51 seconds can be found. The rule of thumb is usually a minute per 10k, and really only applies if you've got some help. And when you've got hyper-motivated climbers who lead this race and have come in very, very fresh, looking like Valverde, like a Contador, then seriously, you are in trouble, and that trouble is serious. Tim Wellens can do his very best. I hope he makes it, but I'm lacking belief at this moment. Yeah,
he's the rider that certainly deserves to win today. Been out in front with that breakaway. Of course, back then he had 4 other riders to share the pacemaking with, but now it's all up to him. It's his own race of truth, but one thing's for sure. He's a rider that will not give up until he's caught. He will basically ride himself almost into the ground. And despite the lead tumbling rather rapidly, did you see the encouragement he got from the team car? They're not just going to say, hey, Tim, just call it quits. He's nowhere on the general classification. He's gone out specifically to try and target this stage. He's doing a cracking job at the moment. It's going to be very difficult to stay away, but he will certainly not give up.
Gosh, no variation. 4 lemon trees there amongst a sea of olives. I guess that's just for the martinis of the farmer after a heavy day's picking. Right, pick the bones out of this one, will you? 9.8 kilometres to go. So our friend up front, Tim Wellens, is already climbing, at least on the foothills. These guys still descending to get to the bounce, and they trail him by 49 seconds. Wellens, by the way, overall 7 minutes and 18 at the top of the day. I don't think he's going to hold on. Right, pace is very much up, and the camera bike has pulled back just a little bit. And here we are. He's still not on the test. I think the GPS may well be out. In fact, he is just starting to climb now. It's just very, very mild on the transition where he is at the moment. About 6% he'll be getting up to pretty quickly. It averages this, none too frightening percentage of what, 9.2 over its length of 5.3 k's, which is the only part of it that's actually measured.
Exactly. The first couple of bits are around 10%, but as you say, it's quite an even gradient all the way to the top. Although it's really worth mentioning as well, the last 500 meters it drops down to only about 4 or 3%. So well, the last 500 meters relatively flattish. So if you've got Alejandro Valverde with you, we saw what he did yesterday, unless he's already left them before. So yeah, the last 500 meters a little bit easier than the vast majority of the climb.
Sponsored by Gold Car. I don't know who that is, but it's probably
a car hire company.
Yeah, is it?
I've used their cars before.
Were they good?
Weirdly, it was a black car. It wasn't gold.
8.4 kilometres to go. 34 seconds is the gap, and this is a real charge down at the moment. Sky under the guidance of the man who looks like a robot, Vasil Kirienka, but it's actually just a super quiet guy, the Belarusian. They come through Mancha Real, and they will be chewing into this one before you know it. 30 seconds only. I'm afraid it's all over for Tim Wellens. So the question is, who's going to step forward? It has to be Alejandro Valverde and Alberto Contador. Izaguirre will definitely be there. Uran likewise. Reichenbach will be in the frame. Rosa for Team Sky will be back up to poles, you can be sure. Landa will also be in the frame. They may have some other fish to fry as well. It's going to be a climb to glory today to tee up a wonderful time trial tomorrow, and then 2 further stages on what is a race that I don't know, they've provided such great theatre for us just with their battle, with the terrain that they've chosen.
Yeah, that's it. This race has started off with a bang. This has been a tremendous stage so far. Very, very exciting finale that we're going to get. 24 seconds for our solo leader. As we said before, he's battle scarred from that tumble about 25 kilometres ago, but he certainly has not given up. But out of our race leaders, who will attack? Will it be Valverde? Will it be Wout Poels? We've talked about the depth of strength with Team Sky. What they may try and do, because they're setting things up at the moment, Kirienka still leading the peloton, or what's left of the peloton, to the foot of the final climb. Team Sky do have options. Will they send Mikel Nieve up the road? Will they send Landa up the road to force Movistar to chase? Fascinating finale in store.
Oh, Grandad crossing the road very, very late there, and the whistle man going crazy at him. No surprise there. Let's hope everyone keeps it safe as they come in and dip into the foot of this climb. La Mesa is where we are. They've taken the distance marker out because it was wrong. They've still got about 9 Ks to go once they bounce through. I did wonder, maybe they've adjusted correctly, but to my mind, don't think so. Oh, we're into Torres, which is halfway up the climb. Beg your pardon, little step down, so we'll go with it. 6.5 kilometres then, just like to keep you informed. There is Wellens. He's got a margin of 15 seconds only, and here come everybody else. Pennant Man working very, very hard. They're trying to slow them all down, but look, some being brave and taking advantage. Brave or foolish, not quite sure. About 5 wide they were, and it compressed to about 3, and it's now single file as they charge into the gap that has been thrown up by Tim Wellens. Out of time they'll come. It'll max out at 11% the climb that he's going to be engaged in, and right now I'm afraid it's just going to have to be chapeau to him, because he is going to get eaten up here by a very hyper determined and motivated chasing peloton, which includes all the stars and the principals who are going to duke it out for victory here. He's transitioning onto the climb, Sky aware that this transition is coming up. Here it is, and then he will start climbing up the hills that beckon ahead of him. In fact, it's is it marked, the foot of it? Not quite, but here we go then. 5.9 kilometres to go. He knows his day is done, and he allows himself a look over his shoulder. Brave, brave ride by Tim Wellens, but I'm afraid in the end to no avail, save for the points that he's picked up along the way.
Well, brave, brave effort. In a couple of moments' time, he will be finally engulfed by the peloton led by Team Sky. Chapeau to Tim Wellens.
All together goes up the call on race radio, and now look at this, everyone's in colour order. They're starting to look at each other. Their battle plan is about to be engaged.
Well, Kirienka leads. He spent a long time on the front. Now Mikel Landa takes it up, just setting that smooth rhythm. Not too staccato, nice and smooth, and we know now till the rest of the climb it's a very even gradient of about 6-7%. The riders now looking at each other, and it looks like Fabio Fellini of Trek Segafredo who takes the tempo at the front.
Yes, just drifts out, have a look behind, just wants to know where his principal is. Of course, is Alberto Contador. You'll see him in the unfamiliar red and black of Trek Segafredo in a few moments' time. Sam Oman, by the way, won the Tour de Lane last year. The youngster from Team Sunweb has also taken a big bit of vision, and he's starting to drift up. It's that white with the black stripe down his back. Warren Barguil is also there, and I think he's going to be working for Oman today. The Oman's probably good. He certainly is. 5.3 kilometres to go. Also locked in there, I notice, is Rigoberto Urán, but where are his teammates? They've gone. There's been a lot of hard work done out there. Don't confuse that with Euskadi Basque, who want to keep it local. We're also looking at Wanty Group Gobert. Euskadi Basque in sort of a tree frog green, if you like. More of an emerald green is Caja Rural, who are staying with him. Gosh, they're all starting to show their nose at the moment, and we look deep, and they're all looking at each other as well. Everyone's trying to keep an eye on everybody else. This is wrestling with Valverde to get him to the fore, and you just feel that he may well go on the attack any moment. His teammates keep looking at him. Are you going to go? He says, not yet, not yet, but you feel that they're going to light the fuse at any moment here.
Any moment the attack is going to come. You would have thought. 5 Ks to go now. On the left-hand side is Fellini in the red for Italy and Trek Segafredo, and the rider leading now is the King of the Mountains in the Giro d'Italia. That's Mikel Nieve on his wheel. Second place yesterday is Wout Poels, and a previous winner, of course, of this race, looking very, very comfortable. But where is Alberto Contador? Yeah. I think he's just a little bit further down. That's Warren Barguil on the right-hand side. The Frenchman moving up for Sunweb in the white and black, looking like he's going to launch an attack.
I think he is. He's got to go long. This is for his own good, apart from anything else. else. 10th overall, the man for Team Sunweb. Kind of looks familiar, the livery. It's a bit like Giant as was, but a new team, Team Sunweb, and he has opened it up. Warren Barguil can do some great descents, can climb brilliantly as well, and in fact was being talked up as the favoured son of the French press until, of course, Alaphilippe stepped out, and now Pierre-Roger Latour and so many others. Strength in depth amongst the youngsters. Barguil still one of those. Pinot not tempted to join him from Francis Injure to make it a day for France on this, the Queen's Day. Somebody else, I'm sure, will decide to go for this. And just seeing who's out of the saddle, very much so, and looking lively. Alberto Contador just gets up towards the front. Finally, at last, he appears, at least from this shot, to be moving into position. Valverde staying with him with 4.5 kilometres to go.
It's still Warren Barguil on the front. The 25-year-old Frenchman took a couple of stages, remember, in the Vuelta a España back in 2013. He's still not, I don't think, fulfilled his potential. That little surge, it wasn't really a sharp acceleration, but drifted off the front. Certainly cannot hold that tempo. I think he's put himself into the red. Still Feline on the right for Trek Segafredo, the squad of Alberto Contador, and Mikel Nieve of Team Sky, the little rider from the Basque Country, setting that smooth rhythm. Still Walt Poles there, and looking, I can see Alejandro Valverde there is in the centre of your screen, about 5th or 6th wheel in the red jersey of race leader.
Also in there, about P7 at the moment, is Bahrain Marida's Jon Izagirre. Absolutely on stellar form last year, and of course don't forget 5th in Paris-Nice, 3rd in Romandy, runner-up in the Tour of Switzerland. This sort of terrain, he can eat it. The trouble is also feasting at the top table are Contador and Valverde. They're all looking at each other at the moment. Pinot and Reichenbach are guiding themselves, and here we go. They're starting to mix it, and Sky it is, of course. Their principles can hold back. Poles, who wears the blood orange jersey, can sit in here. He's got a perfect excuse because they've sent a man up. Perfect play, as it was yesterday. Just a 2nd place for Poles yesterday. Could turn it into a win today.
Well, this is Mikel Landa who's gone away. We saw him do this. Such a classy bike rider. Had a very difficult year last year with injury. He said that after the finish yesterday, he's very happy with the way he's gone because he didn't have a lot of race miles in his legs, but certainly looking good today. And remember, Team Sky have real strength in depth. I've said it before, but I need to say it again because they do have options. This is the moment he attacked up the inside. Nieve looks over his shoulder, got plenty of room, but remember, they have a flying Diego Rosa, they have Wout Poles, as well as Mikel Nieve, all sitting high on the general classification. And at the moment, Mikel Landa has opened up a nice bit of a gap, looking very strong at the moment.
He is. It's a comfortable one just for the time being, and out of the saddle he sets a tempo. This is not the winning move, I wouldn't have thought. We'll see who decides to sail into the gap. Landa too well placed after finishing in 8th place yesterday. It's not going to be about him necessarily. 3.8 kilometres to go. If they do malfunction in the chase and potentially leave it until a time trial, I think they may well suffer. So somebody's going to have to reach out. One of the teams is going to have a go here. Perfect timing though by Team Sky. Just as they mobbed the front as well, they were able to sit up and almost anchor the field. If you like, just hold everyone back even momentarily, break their rhythm. As this man went up, they mobbed the front, and you had to go round them if you wanted to respond. Great work.
Well, definitely, it's great work, a good tactic, because what this forces the other teams to do, especially Trek Segafredo with Alberto Contador and Alejandro Valverde, they have to chase. But what that happens is, if they chase, then Team Sky have the option to go over the top again. So this, as you said, maybe not the race-winning move, but a little bit of a marker just to test the water, to force the other teams to try and bring back Mikel Landa.
Yeah, the motorcycle that was standing at the side of the road, by the way, was standing on gravel, and he just couldn't get away because every time he tried to leave, the back wheel started to spin, and it was firing gravel at everybody who was approaching. Thankfully, he did get out of there. Getting out of the pack at the moment is Landa, and stretches it. 3.4 kilometres to go. There's still a lot of this day remaining because of the climb. Matt, it does ease off at the last.
It does. The last 500 metres drop down to around 3%, so you can get yourself over the top. I wouldn't exactly call it plain sailing, but a far steadier rise to the line. But it has a steady rhythm. This is the sort of climb that suits a particular sort of climber. It's the kind of rhythm. Just get yourself into the sort of rhythm. You don't need to ride in that staccato sort of style, but at the moment, no response from the peloton. When, if, will it come?
Well, that's the picture we were looking for, showing us the gap here. No declared time gap, but we may well start timing a few ourselves. In fact, if we can just hold this picture, I'm not suggesting the director is listening to us as humble souls, but I can tell you it is about 15 seconds he's got at the moment. 3.1 Ks remaining, and still he churns on. Now, maximum gradient that he's still got to take is about now, actually, about 11%. And here's the response. In fact, it's on the steeper part that they have gone for it. Alberto Contador is here. He has a look over his shoulder. Now, this is exactly what he was dealing with yesterday. Fellini's been working so very, very hard for Contador, but Contador here is starting to wrestle it as we pass those children. A great marker for us on our timings here. I think that Landa's job is now done, and we'll see where the kids are on the side of the road. There they are. So 10 seconds is what he's got. He had about 15. It's starting to close down. Sky just waiting and being guided into position at the moment by Alberto Contador. Now behind him, it's not Contador's teammate, it's Valverde. He's wearing the red leader's jersey. It's pretty indistinct from the Trek boys just in front of him. Poles is also there, working extraordinarily hard. And just behind him, you've got Reichenbach with Thibaut Pinot as well from Francis de Jeux. This could be playtime for these boys. Let's see. Still they grind into it, and Contador is going to have to go alone. They've nearly bridged over. Proper work by Trek Segafredo.
Well, great work by Trek Segafredo. Fellini led Contador almost to Mikel Landa, but now Contador goes. He has the red jersey of race leader Alejandro Valverde. Valverde appears to have cracked.
Oh,
Contador goes.
He's gone pop. Valverde can't follow, not for the time being anyway. He's gone. Now who else is left? Reichenbach with Pinot are also there, and this is trying to retrieve the situation. He ran out of teammates for Movistar. Too much yesterday? Not quite sure. There's Wout Poels in the blood orange jersey as well, just sailing in behind Valverde as Contador starts to eat into the incline. 2.5 to go. This is a mighty, mighty effort. Reichenbach is still very much there and involved. So is Wout Poels, who's just about to bridge over to his teammate.
What an impressive attack there by Alberto Contador, 5 times Grand Tour winner, of course, an amazing display. I think it's still Mikel Landa in the middle, but did you see Valverde crack? He put him, well, basically the attack by Contador put Valverde in the red. He thought, no, it's dangerous to try and follow when you're in the red, so he's regrouped, he's got back, he needs a little bit of help, but what's happened is he's been isolated. It's still Mikel Landa in second place. Then you have the group led by Reichenbach. Also in there is Valverde and Wout Poels.
What a day, and what a day to show your heels to everybody else. Contador was angry yesterday, angry with Alejandro Valverde, and he would have loved that moment. As a pro, you kind of live for those moments, as you'll attest, Matt, where you stare down the opposition. You never quite know what Alejandro Valverde is going to do, and yesterday he didn't do enough as far as Alberto Contador was concerned, and so today Contador has gone and done it for himself.
Well, it's Thibaut Pinot, the Frenchman, who's chasing now. He has Wout Poels on his wheel. Then it's Alejandro Valverde. Then I think it's difficult with a picture breakup. There is Landa still in between. Looks like Landa is holding Contador. The question is, has Alberto Contador gone too early? Still 2.2 kilometers to go. The gradient very even until the last 5K, but look at his face. He's in the red zone here. Can he hold on all the way to the line?
The only thing I fear for Alberto Contador is that occasionally he goes on the attack when he's absolutely the end of his resources. It's almost like the final play of a poker player, but he can win, and today it may well be it. He could not only win, he could have a gap, he could carry it into a time trial tomorrow, he could go on to take the title. It's a brave Alberto. Of course, it is he, king of the mountain at the moment, in more ways than one. 2 kilometers to go when he sees the Flamme Rouge. Right now he's got, what, about 1,500 meters before it eases, and it's starting to get easier, as if it possibly could in this sort of circumstance. There's the 2 to go marker. The policeman almost looked like he was arresting somebody there. Right now, at the moment, the man who's in control, though, is Alberto Contador, and what a fine push this is.
Well, it's a fine ride by Thibaut Pinot. It looks like the race leader has cracked. He's with Izagirre, so yeah. Valverde in all sorts of problems on this climb to the line. Looks like he's conceded nearly 20 seconds now. Contador presses on. He glances over to see the damage he's caused. He has shredded this field.
Yeah, Reichenbach was back there as well, I'm afraid, and here is Contador, and he's starting to smile. Or is it a grimace?
I think it's a grimace.
Possibly a bit of both, with 1,800 meters to go. Pinot. He's got 500 meters of a lesser incline. Let's put it that way. It's still pretty significant. There's a gain over these last 3 kilometers, the last 1.9. Indeed, there's 5 bends to take. In fact, he's out of the bends right now, I should say. Pinot it is that stretches his legs, and just going pop after so much work. Michael Landa still tries to guide Wout Poels here, trying to keep in the frame his teammates when we get to the time trial. More than in the frame at the moment, in the golden throne, I think you might say, by the end of the day. Surely it's going to be this man. He'll exchange the red and black for the all red of the leader's jersey, I'll be bound, when he brings this one home. He's got the crowd behind him as well, and the terrain is starting to come his way as well. There's Valverde. Is he seeing it all go away from him? And with Jon Izagirre as well, who are expected to be one of the principals today, and they've been found wanting by a Sky team who've been able to hold back. As a team, Sky lead that ranking, and they've played it beautifully today. But it's only going to be runners-up marks, I think, for them, with 1,600 metres to go. Well,
still 1,600 metres to go, and as you said, Carlton, in around 1,100 metres, the gradient lessens. Alberto Contador needs to have a hefty gap. But look at Thibaut Pinot, only about 40 or 50 metres behind. Thibaut Pinot riding extremely well. Then you have that trio of Sky riders. You have Mikel Landa there, Wout Poels and Diego Rosa. Look at Valverde looking for assistance from his ex-teammate. It's not over yet, Carlton.
It is not over yet, but it is, I'm afraid, for the lead of Alejandro Valverde. He's not going to make amends for this. Pinot, what a brave ride by him, and shows you what a turnaround. He had a tummy bug in Valencia, got himself into all kinds of bother. We thought he hadn't recovered properly and thought that he would be backing up Reichenbach. It was the other way round, and Thibaut Pinot is stood tall today, but not as tall as the little guy, Alberto Contador, who still pushes on. It just started to ease, as you can see. That's the sort of terrain that I could cope with, maybe. But Thibaut Pinot is coping very well indeed. He's starting to eat into this gap. Well, Contador may not have things all his own way. Pinot yesterday finished down the order. He was finished in 8th place, only gave away 5 seconds. There's no time bonuses at the line, and Contador has to respond, and he does so. He's going for it. That 27 seconds is back to the leaders group. That group being, of course, a one-man group right now, as Izagirre just leads Alejandro Valverde behind. In fact, that's Wout Poels, who's just about to be caught by Valverde, who still hasn't given up either. He wants to eat into this gap, maybe do something on the short time trial. The motorcycle just cutting through the field right now, but cutting through the mountaintop is Alberto Contador, and I think he's going to land this, save for the efforts of Thibaut Pinot, who might just get close.
Absolutely thrilling finale into the final kilometre. There's that familiar style of Alberto Contador, in and out of the saddle. Did him a disservice earlier on. Remember, he's won 7 Grand Tours in his career. Is he on course for a victory to get today? Still 800 metres to go, and the Frenchman closing with every pedal stroke.
He is. Rosa and Landa are still in the frame. Poels tells them to go on. In fact, they did so much work out there, and Valverde's bridged to them. He sailed past Poels out there. Poels wearing the orange jersey, lent to him by Valverde. It'll be Valverde in orange tomorrow, I imagine, unless something dramatic happens over the last 900 metres, but I think he's got it. Shame we can't get a camera here on Pinot to find out what the gap is. 800 metres only, 13 seconds. That's back to Valverde, don't forget. And as the camera pulls round, you can see Pinot. It's going to be a sprint for the line. 800 metres to go, and Pinot's picked it up here. Contador has done an awful lot on his own, has got to basically keep his mind up the road. He'll allow himself a glance over his shoulder. I'm sure there is virtually nothing between them. Objects in the mirror appear closer than they actually are. Well, I can tell you right now that Pinot is an awful lot closer than he looks to Contador at the moment. This essentially is mano a mano to the line. It's not 15 seconds the gap between Contador and Pinot. Contador, I think, might well just get mugged here. He knows it. He stands up out of the saddle. He's trying to drive into this incline. It's not a particularly tough one, probably about 4.8%. Pinot knows that he's got a chance here. Has a look over his shoulder. It's going to be about the last 300 metres, and Pinot's going to come up alongside him. Oh my goodness, the Frenchman, what a turnaround from illness in Valencia. He's now got a chance of taking this stage. This is absolutely remarkable. Contador might leave it until the time trial. Here comes Valverde limiting the damage. He's coming into the hoarded sections. Pinot goes round the Contador. He lights it up. Contador can't respond, surely. Pinot is going to get a phenomenal victory here. That was absolutely outstanding. Count the metres down to a famous victory for the Frenchman. He has delivered a hammer blow to Contador, who'll take the seconds gap that he has over Valverde, who finishes across the line right now. That's about 4 seconds, 5 possibly. Izagirre still in the frame, and here comes a brave Wout Poels, as well as his teammates of Rosa and indeed Landa go across the line. Wow, what a stage. It was the Queen stage. And we've got a king. And he is the sun god. It's Thibaut Pinot.
What a ride by Thibaut Pinot. Did not give up, fought every inch of the way. There was nothing Alberto Contador could do about it. Chapeau to Contador for tearing this race up. He was the rider that caused the race leader Alejandro Valverde to be dispatched. But the way Thibaut Pinot paced himself up that climb, he's obviously ridden himself back into form. He waited for about 10 or 15 meters on the wheel of Contador, who was clearly spent, launched that sprint. Nothing Alberto Contador could do about it. But more importantly as well, it looks like Thibaut Pinot will get confirmation in a moment. Great show of sportsmanship there from the race leader Alejandro Valverde. Here it is again. It looks like he stole the second gap. So there's the moment that Thibaut Pinot took a breath and then took several lengths out of Alberto Contador in the last 200 meters, punches the air, venting his spleen, rolls across the line. Alberto Contador fighting for the time, but I think there's definitely a clear second gap there. What a victory by Thibaut Pinot of FDJ. Fine, fine win by the Frenchman.
He only led the day the last 35 meters. That was amazing. What a day. Well, you've had two absolutely cracking stages. You've got to hand it to the organisers here of Andalusia. A lot of people said you could blow this race out of the water in the first two stages if you're not careful, and it'll be all over. It's not all over by a long margin. Well, some big gaps out here. There is Valverde. How brave for him to fight on. Never say die attitude. We saw it yesterday, we've seen it again today. And greatest of all, on the day, I think the sun god, I meant the sun king, as in Louis the Thibaut Pinot is that man. Great day for the French here in Andalusia. Ah, the Olive Sea. Does anything else grow here? Thibaut Pinot is the answer.
Well, he certainly grew there, didn't he? What a fine victory. Didn't give up. What a thrilling pursuit that was all the way to the line. Alberto Contador just started to fade. Here it is again. Thibaut Pinot strategically as well. He rested. There was nothing more that Alberto Contador could do. Real stamp on the pedals, opened up that gap, and then the last 100 meters just sprinting as hard as he could. But as you said, well, as I mentioned earlier on, importantly, he's opened up a little bit of a time gap, but this has teed things up wonderfully for tomorrow's individual time trial. You can just see behind Alejandro Valverde sprinting into third place. Remember, no time bonuses on offer in this race, and I think that's actually a good thing. Forces the riders to be aggressive, and they're certainly going to have to ride very, very hard tomorrow. But what a great win by Thibaut Pinot.
Right, tomorrow, time trial. Let's hope we've got all our timings hooked up. So deficit in Valencia, I'm hoping Andalusia do the job for us. Alberto Contador given a gap of 2 seconds from Thibaut Pinot. Valverde 7 seconds back, so it's a 5-second gap between Contador and Valverde. This could all be crucial by the time we get to the time trial. There is Rigoberto around 46 seconds down. Moreno, Chink also in here. Warren Barguil, such a brave effort by him as well. He almost teed up Pinot, did he not? Albeit from a different team, of course, team somewhere. Very much a day where our focus turned from the Spaniards to the French riders. Great to see that all the promise that has been displayed over the last couple of seasons by France remains intact, and indeed at the top of the season. It's great to see Thibaut Pinot back from injury in Valencia. Not injury, sickness, I should say. We thought it had knocked him back big time, but, well, he got his racing legs back yesterday, clearly. And he showed what he can do with them today. He certainly did. A superb ride. He paced it perfectly as well. He was just dangling at the back of that little group. We saw Valverde try and follow Alberto Contador. And it's a great bit of riding by Feline, who really ripped that group apart. And then, as we see, Alberto Contador went straight over the top of that. But Valverde quickly realised that he couldn't match that pace. But a perfect bit of pacing by Thibaut Pinot to take the win. Here's your overall standings. Alberto Contador is our leader. Thibaut Pinot trails him by 3 seconds. So Contador in red. Valverde's third now, but 5 seconds down. Izagirre also 5 seconds down ahead of Rose, who rounds out the top 5. Then comes Powles, Landa, Reichenbach, Uran, and Wiening. What a day, and another great one to come tomorrow, you can be sure. Thibaut Pinot takes the motorcycle exhaust and indeed the flowers as well. looks like a blower. Don't forget, coming up we have the Tour of Algarve. It's the second stage. Rob Hatch and Brian Smith just putting down their pastel de nada as we speak to enjoy that particular stage. You will as well, I am sure. Don't forget, tomorrow, courtesy of Velon, we've got some fantastic data, in-course data on the riders to be rolled in. Looking forward to that. Should add something to our to the time trial. We'll be able to get a measure on those who are out there and see how they're doing. Don't forget, we're riding again. Let's hope they all stay upright on the time trialing course. Tim Bellens took a tumble, got back on, got reabsorbed, but so late on. What a brave ride it was by him. Others also got bitten at the same point. And then the mountains. Tomorrow we'll have more fun. It's a short time trial, but it will be super dramatic. Hugely dramatic. Hugely super. 15:30 Central European time. That's 2:30 in the afternoon in the United Kingdom. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.